I think it was Daphne who was correcting my essays, and she was very, very supportive and very rewarding. When somebody gives you, this is great, this is perfect, and when somebody boosts your self-esteem that way after sitting 4 tests, you're like, okay, I'm on the right path. This is what I'm doing.
Hello there, IELTS students. Welcome to IELTS Podcast. You no longer have to worry, fret, or panic about IELTS because we are here to guide you through this test jungle. Enjoy these IELTS tutorials, and if you need more help or want to access the famous online course, you can visit us at IELTSPodcast.com.
Hello IELTS students. In this podcast today, we're going to be looking at pronunciation and how you can improve your pronunciation in 18 minutes. We're going to do this by looking at why pronunciation is so important, what affects your pronunciation, and this is different from language to language, how to improve your pronunciation, understanding the most difficult sounds and how to make them easier, and also how to practice. So I'm going to be offering you some really practical advice on how to work on your pronunciation and get it absolutely perfect before your IELTS exam. Some of these suggestions will make you smile. The third one is really funny, so look out for that one. First, let me introduce myself. My name's Daphne. I've worked with some of you on the essay corrections. You'll hear my accent that I come from the south of England. Now, Ben comes from Manchester, so his accent is quite different from mine. This doesn't matter. Accent is not important. So if you choose to have a British accent or an American accent or an Australian accent when you're practicing your English or when you're learning your English, that doesn't matter. The most important thing is that you can be understood very clearly. So although Ben and I come from different parts of England and have different accents, we still speak English with very good pronunciation. My IELTS story, or how I got into IELTS teaching, is kind of similar to Ben's. I started teaching probably about 8 years ago. I started teaching general English. After about 3 weeks, I was given an IELTS class to teach. This was terrifying. I didn't know enough about this exam. It's obviously, as you know, a high stakes exam. People are very motivated. It's very important to understand what is going on as a teacher so you can give your students the very best. So I started specialising. I started finding out more. I started asking questions. And the area that I've come to really enjoy focusing on is writing. So writing for IELTS is one of my big things. But so is speaking, because the speaking part of the exam I know is terrifying for many people. You are on parade. You have to do your very best. So let's get into this. What is pronunciation and why is it so difficult? Have a listen to this sentence. This sentence contains 7 different spellings of the same sound, which is E, the long E. Listen to this. We believe that people would see that Caesar could seize the seas. It's a bit tricky to say this. If you write down that sentence, we believe that people would see that Caesar could seize the seas, you will see the spelling is very, very different for all those sounds. That is one of the reasons why English is hard. So pronunciation describes how a word specifically, and indeed the language, sounds when it's spoken. It defines the way you use a spoken word or a language. And pronunciation applies to the pattern of the sounds in a language. And we're going to talk a bit more later about patterns in language. It's really, really relevant here. So although we have a different accent, Ben and I, we speak in the same pattern, and that's really important. And with practice, you can as well conquer these differences and these difficulties of English. And as you become more fluent, you're going to get more confident. So why is pronunciation so important? So even if you have a good grammar and an extensive vocabulary, people may misunderstand your meaning. And they may also judge you and believe that your English isn't as good as it is. They might not notice your excellent grammar or your vocabulary. They'll judge your English on what they hear. This is why it's very, very important when you hear a new word to look it up in a dictionary, to see how it's actually pronounced. And I would recommend to you the Oxford Learners Dictionary. You can get an app on your phone. It's a really good app. And with that, you can type in a word and it shows you how to pronounce it using the phonemic script. This is the script that you may have learned as a student, but many people haven't. And it's symbols which show you how to pronounce a word. It's really, really worth investigating. And in the dictionary, you can see the script, and also you can usually press a button and that tells you how to pronounce the word in either British English or American English. So that's my first tip. Use a dictionary. Check out how you're meant to pronounce this word. And then practical advice, how to use this word. So make sure you bring it into a conversation. Make sure you write it in your essay. Send us your essays to get them checked. We have a $5 essay correction service. I don't know how long that's going to last for. Send in your essay for some feedback. Use these words in your essays, and then they become part of your vocabulary. So pronunciation and clear understanding of English are kind of complementary skills. If you know how to pronounce a word, your level of speech understanding will also improve, and your vocabulary will also improve. When you look at the speaking exam, one of the most important things and the band descriptors is that you're using wide range of pronunciation features with mixed control for band 6, and for band 7 a wide range and flexible control of pronunciation features. Some of these features we're going to look at in a minute, but in general this is very important to how you are understood and speak with good clarity. So what affects your pronunciation? Why is it so difficult? So your ability to learn pronunciation depends on many, many things. Some of them are just a natural ability to mimic accents, and some people are just luckier than others on that one. Young children, for example, it's much easier for them to improve their pronunciation. We learn languages much more easily than when we're younger. How long and to what extent we've been exposed to a language makes a difference. If you're quite new to learning English, it's going to be harder for you than someone who's had lessons or been exposed to English since they were a child. Some languages have stronger accents than others, so it's harder to unlearn your native accent and learn another one. You'll hear some accents are very strong in English, although you might be able to understand them. Some accents do stay. And of course your motivation, and this is what we want to encourage you today. You can do it. It's really important to make the effort, and then we can help you here. Even listening to this, hopefully you'll be becoming more aware of pronunciation and how to improve, and just listening to this is really, really good practice. Let's look at some of the most difficult sounds and then practical advice how we can make these easier. English has lots of difficult sounds. The most important thing for you to really focus on are your vowel sounds. So we've got A, E, I, O, U, the 5 vowel sounds, and then we've got the diphthongs, which are the 2 vowel sounds together, and then the consonants. And these combined make up English words. So you need to make sure your sounds are clear and clean, and any confusion could result in the examiner hearing a different word and the meaning being altered and your sentence being misunderstood. So if you listen to this sentence, try and repeat this after me. This has a lot of vowel sounds in it. A significant proportion of those affected could have been better educated. I have to work my mouth quite hard to say those sounds, and it's really important that you practice doing that in English as well. Diphthongs are the 2 vowel sounds that go together in words such as town or play or slow or pair. Listen to this, try and repeat this as well. Policymakers in local towns have suggested building more green spaces for children to play and tourists to appreciate. Even better, get a pencil. Get a pencil now, write down those 2 sentences. A significant proportion of those affected could have been better educated. Next one. Policymakers in local towns have suggested building more green spaces for children to play and tourists to appreciate. tourists to appreciate. There's some difficult sounds in there, but practice them. The more you practice, the more you'll feel relaxed, and then the more you'll feel confident. Another quick tip while we're talking about practicing is go slowly. So many students who I work with on some of the IELTS speaking practice we do race through their part 2 speaking presentations really, really fast. It makes it extremely hard for the examiner to understand. It's hard to understand the coherence, and it's hard to hear the words that you are trying to say. So take a breath, calm down, slow down, and then you'll find it a lot easier to pronounce these difficult words. And the additional benefit is that the examiner will find it much easier to understand you. So we've got the vowel sounds and we've got the consonant sounds we've just been talking about. We've also got this really strange sound, which is the schwa. And the schwa is one of those English sounds that is it's like a vowel, but it's a weak sound. It is unstressed. If you imagine just sitting down in a chair and relaxing your shoulders, it's that kind of sound. It's an exhale. So we hear it at the end of these words: computer, doctor, teacher. At the end of those words, they are unstressed. They're very weak sounds. The unstressed weak syllable is one of the most important sounds to master in English because we are very lazy when we talk. You often heard at the beginning of the word or at the end of the word. And I'll give you an example of a sentence here. The next time you listen to 2 native speakers, try to deconstruct their sentences. The next time you listen to 2 native speakers, try to deconstruct their sentences. The weak syllables here are: next time you listen, it's you listen. To 2 native speakers, try to deconstruct their sentences. When you say a sentence slowly, it's much harder to hear. But when you listen to people speak, watch films, listen to the radio, listen to your colleagues, and you'll just hear this weak sound. It's very lazy, it's very relaxed. This links into another really important part of pronunciation, which you need to master to ensure that you become fluent here. This is word stress. So the schwa we've said is unstressed. And you need to understand where the stress is placed, as incorrect word stress can change the meaning of the word completely. Take the word conversation. So conversation, the 3rd syllable here is stressed. I'm not saying conversation, because that wouldn't make sense. And sometimes it's even more important than that. Take the word desert, for example. If I'm talking about desert with the stress at the beginning, I'm talking about a hot, sandy place, geography. If I'm talking about dessert, stressing on the last syllable, I'm thinking of a really lovely chocolate pudding that I'm going to have at the end of my dinner. That makes a big difference. Think of the word minute and think of the word minute, spelled exactly the same, but when the stress is placed differently, there's a different meaning. So word stress is really important. In English, we link up our sentences. If you listen to a sentence, that one again. The next time you listen to 2 native speakers, try to deconstruct their sentences. I'm not saying each word individually. I'm linking my words together. The linking really connects to this idea of word stress, to the schwa, the weak syllables, and the stressed syllables. So English is what we call a stressed timed language. So stress timed means that I'm emphasizing words. You can hear me doing it now. I'm emphasizing certain words, and other words are less important, so I'm going to say them faster. So this awareness of the sound, the intonation, is really important to practice. And this is difficult because some languages are stress timed. Thai, for example, Russian, German, Arabic, and Swedish. And some of the examples of stress-timed languages similar to English. But then there's another complication because the intonation, the up and down natural sing-song of the voice and the emotion and graduation of the sentences could be different in those languages. So we talk about singing a song, but we sing in English in a different way to the way we sing in Russian or sing in Swedish. That's also something that's really important to think about. Languages that aren't stress timed are syllable timed. So a language like French, for example, there is equal emphasis on the different syllables within a word. That makes the sound very different. That can make it a lot harder for some people to master that sound of English. The best way you can do this is to practice. Find as many opportunities as you can to talk in English. The more you practice, the more confident and the more fluent you will become. Talk to your colleagues in English. Even if they don't want to talk to you back in English, practice as much as you can. Find a group of people who also like speaking English. Practice with them. When you hear new words on television, movies, podcasts, make sure you repeat them. That will help you remember what the sound is like. You'll make the connection between the sound and your brain will remember it. Check it out in the dictionary, like I said. Check out the sound. Make sure you use that word in your essay, in your speech. Here's the funny one I mentioned at the beginning. Have fun with tongue twisters. A tongue twister is a phrase you might have learned at school. They are very hard because they contain so many similar sounds. And many English teachers help their students use tongue twisters because it can help on the pronunciation. Start slowly, like we said, and then speed it up. I'm going to give you an example, but I'm not very good at this. So, she sells seashells on the seashore. The seashells she sells are seashells, I'm sure. The only way you can get through that is working on the word stress. So it's also a very good practice on word stress. Here's another one. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. How many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick? Hopefully you will not have to do that very often, and you definitely won't have to do it in your IELTS exam, but it is really good practice. So pay attention to how your mouth, your tongue, your lips are moving when you're pronouncing English. Go in front of a mirror. Nobody's going to see you, but go in front of a mirror and practice using your mouth, using these words, saying these words, because it might feel quite different from your language. Some words will be harder for you than others, so take a note of those words. Break them into small parts that you can easily manage. Pronunciation is a difficult word. It has a lot of syllables. Say it, break it into little bits, and then say the syllables and then put them together again. That will give you more confidence, and then learning new sounds will become easier. Listening is one of the most important aspects of learning. Listening to these podcasts, signing up to these podcasts is a brilliant start. It's a really good way to hear native English speakers talking to you about something technical to your learning and your listening. But write down some of the sentences that we've used today, or practice some dictation. Ask someone to read you a paragraph and then write down what you've heard. You can listen to audio clips, listen to the news, and write down what people are saying, or just simply imitate, practice them. And that will also help you understand the word stress, saying these sentences out loud. So learning a new language is all about communication. Pronunciation is a key element of this. So you can be great at grammar, great at vocabulary, but you need to be able to pronounce the words properly. Hopefully this podcast will have helped you. Hopefully you will be understanding and learning and listening more as you listen to all our podcasts. And if you're finding it hard with your English, if you're struggling with aspects of IELTS and you want some feedback, have a look at the online course. There are brilliant modules, brilliant essay corrections, lots of feedback, lots of ways to improve. So you send us your essay. You can start doing that with your $5 essay correction, which is still available now. Send us your essay. We will give you some really, really good feedback. This is the best way for you to improve. Understand where your mistakes are, and then you won't make them anymore. And the wide range of courses we offer, check out IELTSPodcast.com. The courses cover the elements of the writing, the reading, the speaking, the listening. It's the best way for you to practice and get a great score in that IELTS exam. Thanks for listening today. I'm Daphne. Great to have you with us.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.